Good evening. It is Monday, August 9th, approximately 5:02 in the evening, and this is a meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee. I am the chair of this committee, Lynn Snee, and on my right is Mr. Bill Roselle, on my left, Mr. Bill Twist, the other members of this committee. And we are meeting tonight to provide a recommendation to Council regarding the recommendation of the Troy Planning Commission that Council accept the final plat of the reserve at Washington, Section 2 subdivision, and dedication of right-of-way. Mr. Titterington, any other information?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to reiterate that the Planning Commission did review this. They made a unanimous recommendation to move forward to Council. That was conditioned upon making sure that our escrow agreement was worked out with the developer. That has occurred, and so we are making a positive recommendation asking for you to approve that and accept it.
All right. Are there any questions from committee members?
I don't have any questions.
Any other council members? Yes, Mr. Schilling.
Question, Mr. Titterington, on the escrow account, what does that involve as far as, I know the developer pays money into an escrow account, and what is that money to be used for?
That is drawn down kind of like a construction loan would, and when elements of the public improvements are done, the developer improvements that are on the list that the engineer has accepted, then he or she submits to us for a letter to send to their bank so that their bank would release the amount that's due to them based on the amount of work that they've done to date.
Okay, so that escrow account does not include sidewalks, costs for sidewalks, curbs, service lane, that type of thing, is that correct?
It does.
It does?
Yes.
Okay, that goes in contradiction to an email I received from the engineering department that says that we did not include those improvements in the plan improvement.
We did not require, the Planning Commission and staff did not require a sidewalk and curb along Washington from one end of the development to the other. I think it's north and south.
Right, Washington Road runs north and south.
Right. Other than that, though, there are plenty of curbs, gutters, sidewalk in the in Section 2.
Okay, so my question then would be, we had, when the subdivision, Stonebridge Estates was laid out 20 years ago, they required curbs and sidewalks and a service lane alongside Washington Road. So what has changed in the last 20 years whereby Washington Reserve is not required to build that?
Nothing has changed, but since this development and where it's located is out without any kind of connections.
Well, Stonebridge Estates has no connections on Washington Road either.
Well, you're asking me a question, I'm trying to answer it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So we determined in talking to the developer that rather than requiring that at this time, because it can be assessed at the point where there are connections between that development and other land in the area, and instead we're requiring them to do a turn lane at their cost because that is warranted as part of their development.
How long is that turn lane?
I don't have the exact dimensions.
Well, I mean, is it 150 feet or 200 feet or how long?
Again, I don't have the exact dimensions, but I would say probably the length is 100, maybe 150, and then there's tapering.
Okay, so we've given up 1,700 feet of sidewalk, curb, and a service lane for a 150-foot turn lane. Is that correct?
I mean, probably beginning to end, it's probably, because there's tapers on each end, 600-700 feet total.
Okay.
Because the turn lane is usable. So when you talk about Stonebridge Meadows on the south side,
We're not talking about Stonebridge Meadows, we're talking about Stonebridge Estates.
Okay.
Stonebridge Estate is on Washington Road.
Sorry.
Stonebridge Meadows is on Route 718.
Okay, I apologize for saying Meadows. Stonebridge Estates, Meadow Point Lane that goes out to
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
I am not certain, when we look back at the plans, the width is quite wide. I don't know why it was built that wide.
It's 14 feet.
Yes, I agree. Actually, the long-range transportation plan of Washington Road only shows it to be a three-lane width, which a three-lane width would have the developer build a 6-foot additional width of street, which would not be a drop lane, as is pretty much what city just painted in there, the case at Meadow Point. So it wouldn't be a usable lane. It would be more similar to lanes that are half lanes that are not turn lanes, or drop lanes that exist along McKeag.
Right.
And so those actually, what we've determined through, as you can see, 20 years ago, that is street that, while we could make the developer build it now, it's not usable street. Meadow Point Lane is, McKeag is not, and so therefore we have to maintain it. We have to spray it with weeds. I mean, so that's why we chose to not use that, and that's why we discussed with the developer to get a usable left turn lane, which is usable on day one.
And to clarify, Mr. Schilling, we didn't give anything up. We can and would assess at a future date when it becomes
Assess who?
the property owners.
And they're aware that they can be assessed on this?
The only property owner at this point is the developer.
Well, no, they've got like 18 houses built on that property, and some of them been sold.
So north of the reserve at Washington is Washington Bend Court. Those residents all exist. More than likely, they won't be annexing into the city for a really long time. South of this, we looked at it, and there are a lot of 5 and 10 acre lots with fairly new houses on them. And so with them putting in new septic systems and building wells, that's been our experience, that's what we were kind of looking at, there isn't really going to be a development that's going to have continuity of sidewalks in our opinion when we looked at it from an engineering standpoint. And so that's why we were discussing with the developer a usable left turn, because when somebody comes from 41, hits Washington, and they go to get into this development, they will be making a left turn lane. Right now, Washington Road, if you guys have drove on there, is a township road. It's very narrow. People are driving 55, 60 miles an hour. It's used as a cut through, as a quick way to get down to 75, as a quick way to get to 718, as a quick way to get to Concord Schools, or the back way into Troy, the south side of Troy. So that is why when we looked at the development, we thought it was more beneficial to get a usable left turn lane now, to get, she's granting the right of way, but we thought it was more beneficial to get a usable left turn lane now versus 6 foot of road that's going to sit there. And the other thing is, when Washington Road is, when it's appropriately designed for a city street, it'll be dropped. The elevation will be dropped. So township roads, this is really getting into the weeds, so I do apologize. Try to keep it as simple as possible. Township roads shed water into the ditch. City streets collect water, and it goes into the city street and the collection system, storm sewer system. So when we talk to engineers of developers, and when developments are coming in, if we have them build that, it kind of is like you're setting that elevation of the street, and that's not really what you want to do, because again, county streets, county roads, township roads are high, they shed water. City streets are low, they collect water. Similar things going on, just as a reference, point of reference, Riverside. There's points in Riverside that we're cutting 1 to over 2 feet. So again, because it was a township road, we're making it a city street, and we're collecting water versus shedding water.
My only concern on this is that we look at Washington Road today was what Stanfield Road was 50 years ago.
Okay.
And we are sitting here today, and the infrastructure on Stanfield Road has not been completed, 50 years. We still don't have sidewalks. I mean, we have sidewalks scheduled to be built next year, but right now we don't even have complete sidewalks out there. And I just can't imagine, going through the same process on Washington Road. I think that we ought to really look at building the infrastructure as these things develop. And on the other point is we've just annexed another 8 acres to the south of this Washington Reserve, which I know there's no development plan for that yet. But my guess is that somebody's got some big ideas for that piece of property.
Okay. So when you talk about Stanfield, we could discuss if it's been there 50 years. I'm sure parts of Stanfield have been there 50 years. I'm not certain that Honda has been developed along Stanfield 50 years.
It was here, I moved to Troy, back to Troy in 1978, and at that time Honda was there.
Okay. So,
not quite, that's 42 years ago.
Okay, so there have been several times that we have reached out to Honda and we let them know that there was a sidewalk program coming, but we also said, if you'd like to install sidewalks now, it'd be great. So while, it's not that we haven't attempted, now the other undeveloped properties along Stanfield, right, wrong, or indifferent, it just isn't the city policy. There's other fish to fry. It's not city policy to have them install sidewalks before the property is developed. And there's multiple reasons for that. There's multiple reasons because of construction, destroying the sidewalk when they're actually developing the lot, making it just a higher cost lot. So that's why we typically, if you're talking about South Stanfield and the west side of South Stanfield, that's why we haven't required them to install sidewalks. We have reached out to Honda numerous times and discussed with them installing sidewalks, but we did let them know, hey, there's a reconstruction, there's projects coming down the road that we will install sidewalks, and so that's kind of where they left it.
Okay,
So we didn't assess it.
Here we are
Mr. Schilling?
developing Washington Reserve and no sidewalks.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Do you have another question about this particular item?
I'm just trying to make a point, all right?
I understand your point, but we have lots of committee meetings tonight.
Well, committees are the time when we discuss it.
Absolutely.
And I
Do you
appreciate
have
the
a-
opportunity to do this.
And I'm glad that you have the opportunity. Is there another particular question
I
about
have no
this
more
item?
questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone about this particular item? If not, Ms. Rozelle, Mr. Kiss?
Move forward to the council.
It is unanimous to move forward on this item. Okay. There are no other items to come before Community and Economic Development, so we are adjourned.